Jason's film is such a resource. It doesn't stop here tonight. The story can continue.
We haven't done a good job as hunters, number one, being proud of being hunters and speaking about it openly and honestly and not shying away from it, worrying about offending somebody. There's a perception of what some of these people think hunters are like. You're not some bloodthirsty savage out there. And we need to use that as being proud of what we do and what we stand for.
For too long, we've sat back as hunters and we've not done a good job of telling our own story. We've opened up the doors for people to tell it for us, and it's time we take that conversation back.
Hunting, conservation, hockey, family, podcasting. What else could happen today other than the film itself?
The Avs win.
Avs win.
Boom.
The Avs win.
I didn't even think that was true,
right.
Trevon. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. This is Brandon, your host with Wilderness Attitude Podcast. Welcome to the Pepsi Center. We are here to watch the Colorado Avalanche take on the Minnesota Wild and support wildlife conservation. Portions of the ticket sales tonight go back to the Mountain Elk Foundation. And after the game, we'll get to see the highly anticipated Projectelk film produced by Jason Matzinger, right?
That's right.
And he's from Into High Country. I'm also joined by Trevon Stoltzfus of Outback Outdoors and Willi Schmidt of Pure Hunting. These guys have been putting down the groundwork for this for a long time. They have put a ton of effort into this film this night, and let alone what they do for conservation every day. And so, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us on Wilderness Attitude.
Absolutely.
How are you, Jason? Trevon, good?
Good.
Willie?
Yep.
Good to see you, man. Nice jersey, bro.
You know it.
I
Big
love that
Avs
20th.
fan.
That's sweet.
And
I
Jason's
dig
got
it.
a brand new one.
Yeah.
I
Who
just had
you sporting? Who's on?
I don't know.
McKinnon.
29.
McKinnon, 29. That's awesome.
We tried to get him to put Project Elk on the back, and they said it'd be 6 to 8 weeks. So
Oh, yeah.
We're a little
that's
out.
a bummer.
Right.
we missed it by that much.
Well, that's the story of hunting sometimes, right?
Yeah.
That much.
Just nicked him.
Just nicked him. Well, gentlemen, I think the main reason we're here is to get down to the nitty-gritty about hunting or hunters and anglers, conservation, and what we're doing here on the podcast is to talk to the listeners and tell them about the journey that is taken for Projectelk to come to fruition tonight. And so, Jason, I'm just going to jump right in there at you.
Okay.
You've stated that your journey has evolved as a hunter and how has that led you to producing Projectelk?
Well, I just think that for too long we've sat back as hunters and we've not done a good job of telling our own story and telling the story of conservation. We've opened up the doors for people to tell it for us, and it's time we take that conversation back. It's time we remind people where conservation started, why it started, and who started it. And since I started doing this 10 years ago, I've never seen conservation be such a topical conversation as it is right now. And I think that pieces like Willie and Trevon and myself put out, and having the support of Outdoor Sportsman's Group and podcasts like yourself, I mean, it's just all working together to get that message out. So
I can't agree with you more. What's the most common question that you get about the ethical nature of hunting?
for me,
That's a great question.
Right?
Willie and I
you
look
go
at each other. Hey, you take this one, Jason.
Well, I think that, once again, it just falls back to why I felt this film was so important, is because I do understand, if you didn't grow up in a hunting family, that it is tough to understand how taking an animal's life is ensuring the future of the masses of that animal, the herds.
Right.
And so I would say, the question I get the most is just how can you kill? How can you kill? And and that's where we need to change it. It's not killing. It's not about killing. It's about living. Jana Waller says that all the time, a friend of all of ours. And,
right.
That's the message behind this is why do we hunt? Why do we take an animal's life? And why is that so important for the big picture?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, Willie, don't you think that that following up on that question, that the ethical side of the conservation needs to be a primary focus in delivering to the people, the non-hunter, right? But how important is it to how do we bridge that gap of explaining that it's not killing? Is there anything that you can think of that lends to that?
That's such a loaded question. It's tough. I think, to Jason's point, we haven't done a good job as hunters, number one, being proud of being hunters and what we do, and speaking about it openly and honestly, and not shying away from it, worrying about offending somebody. I think we all, if we're not going to convince the antis to become hunters, or maybe even understand it, I think we need to work on convincing that middle third of people who are sort of ambivalent, but they think of it as such a negative thing of just the kill.
Right.
I just read a great article by Ryan Lampers in Western Hunting Magazine, and it was, I think the argument we all a lot of times try to make and justify why we do it is for the meat. That's a part of it, but we all were raised hunting. It's part of who we are. It's innate, and it's the challenge, it's the experience, it's the camaraderie, it's the planning, it's the prep, it's being outside and appreciating God's creation. It's all of that. And when we do take an animal, there is some remorse. I think people think we're just bloodthirsty, killers out there, and that's not it. And I think there's also a total misconception that we can go out there and kill as many of whatever it is that we want, but it is an honor and a privilege to be able to do it, but that the wildlife biologists and all the parks and wildlife and fish and wildlife in every state do a great job of knowing how many animals can be taken for the management of the herds and the betterment of the herds, and we have more wildlife today as a result of their efforts and hunters' efforts.
I agree. Trevon, so are we as hunters and anglers doing enough to be doing enough for conservation by merely just buying hunting rifles, bows, ammos, and tags?
That's a great question, and honestly, I was talking about this with someone the other day, and that's an important part. That's been in place for 1947, the Pittman-Robertson Act.
There you go.
But that's not enough,
right?
Because that's what's a good word to use, but that's basically standing back and being a lazy conservationist. And I don't mean to knock that program, but I think we need to, as Jason does a great job portraying in Projectelk, that we need to step out, tell our stories, get our hands dirty, and then we need to recruit a generation of boys like this sitting right here that are going to come behind and do that when we're too old to.
Right.
And so, I think it's important that we take an active participation.
Yeah,
not just buying our. That's all good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that.
Well, but there's a little bit of a shield of hunting as conservation, right? But that's not enough, right? There's more to being stewards and citizens of hunting and fishing that go into it other than just purchasing some things, right? It's putting your feet to your faith. It's putting it on the ground, going out and really doing conservation effort.
And I'm not going to step up and say the people that donate time or their money, maybe they don't have the ability to do this project that's their local RMEF or Mule Deer Foundation is doing, and so they put money toward that. There is a place for that, and there's a need for that. But there's something about being active, especially for me working with the younger hunter, a younger individual, not a new hunter, but a younger new hunter, and then getting them involved in an experiential transformation, which happens when they see what's happening, and then you take them hunting on the backside of that, and I think you have a hunter for life. And I think conservation comes in recruitment. That's part of it, and we can recruit those. We want to try and convince people that are non-hunters, but where we really need to focus our efforts, in my opinion, is young people,
right?
And I believe that's how we're going to bring that full circle
turn
quicker.
The circle
I'm not
around.
saying that we forget about the older crowd and conversion, if you will, but I do think that's an important part.
You mentioned something about the organic meat side of things, right? How much do we really put into that movement to serve the overall objective? Because that gets the non-hunters quicker than we see children coming up, right? And the millennials making their changes and understanding what we do. So is that something we put more into or not?
I think you find somebody's hot button if you're talking to them and find out what it is that's important.
Sure.
And I think to some people, in fact, my friend and co-host Chris Nowak has some family in Boulder, and Boulder's Boulder, right? I
Right.
mean, they're looking for the organic and whatnot. And it actually, when he gave some elk to his brother-in-law's neighbor, the guy said, "I want you to take me hunting because it's more organic than you will get at any organic meat store ever." I mean, the only time that's ever been touched by human hands is when you field dress that animal.
Right.
And to some people, that's a hot button. If they know that they can go and provide for themselves, to some people that's not important, but to others it is. And I think, during the conversation, you find out what a hot button is, and a lot of times you can, there you go, Trev, get in line.
Well, now I'm left out.
Now
I
you're
got
left
my
out.
jersey sitting up there. You guys have totally thrown me under the bus here. So with that being said, Willie, Jason, with what Willie said, how do we as hunters and anglers open humanity's eyes and hearts? I mean, I think the film is obviously a big step for you, right? And for all of us, really, all of us collectively. But how else can we find those hot spots, Willie? Like Willie mentioned, Jason.
I just think approaching every opportunity when you're out there, as an opportunity to change somebody's mind. People are always watching, and to the 80%, that are sort of in the middle, they're going to make their decision off of whether they see something good or bad. And it's up to each hunter, whether you have a TV show or a podcast or you just enjoy hunting. We're all representatives of hunting, and being responsible, being ethical, being respectful of the other people that are out there enjoying the national forests like we are, always trying to take the high road, treat them the way we want to be treated. I think, when I first got into this, I felt like if I wasn't affecting hundreds of people at a time, I wasn't doing my job, and I've completely changed. I think that it's just so important, one person at a time, because that person will go out and affect 5 more people. And to Willie's credit, too, one of the guys we interviewed for Projectelk said that he feels like we're one Robert Redford movie away from hunting before you see every Subaru leaving the woods with a deer on top, because we do have the opportunity right now, with people wanting to know where their food came from. We have a greater opportunity to bring more people into hunting now than we ever have. And it's up to us and how we approach them. And I think, just looking at each person that's interested, whether you're, out on the street or talking with a group of buddies, I think just really taking the time to have a conversation with somebody that's meaningful with facts and information is important.
And where do you go ahead, Trevor?
Well, I think that's the key. Henry Ferguson, Henry, he's a local guy here that's a heck of a mule deer hunter, but he looks at it this way. And we had a conversation about this the other day, and he was talking about, I work in a business where it's 90%. He didn't want to say vegan, but a 90% anti-hunting, let's say. And he carries around a bag of jerky that he got from wild game, and he goes in there and he gives it to them, and they taste it, and he said you would not believe the conversations that has happened, even leading to someone saying, "Take me hunting. Mm-hmm. I want to experience this." And all it was a gesture of kindness, opening them up to something that they had never experienced, and they're like, "Oh, this is good." Well, yeah, I went out and I scouted and I took this animal and then I made it into food. Blew their mind, but it took time and it took relationships.
And that's a piece of the conservation effort, right? And that's a piece of us all rounding out ourselves and really identifying who we are as hunters and conservationists and leaders and people who can deliver a proper message to people, right? I think that do you guys have any places where listeners can go to kind of see more, hear more, read more than what they're hearing here that can help educate them to have a better delivery? I mean, you see a lot of these guys are like, "Well, I just hunt because I hunt," or it just doesn't come across right,
Yep.
And their heart might be in the right spot,
Exactly.
but if you're neutral to that and you're looking back, I can see how that could come across kind of negative.
Right. And so do you guys, Jason?
Well, I know, just going back to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, I've been doing a series with them for the last 3 years that's titled Hunting is Conservation. And we've put a lot of work, a lot of research, and a lot of information in those pieces, whether it's pointing out wildlife populations, from the 50s to now of where these wildlife populations are, or the amount of funding that's come through hunting.
Right.
There's an endless amount of information for them to watch through these short films on RMEF.org or the Elk Network.
Nice.
And, not just my stuff. There's a lot of other information there. And two, they have, recipes on there. There's a whole area on Elk Network of wild game recipes, and I find myself scrolling through those all the time, So I personally would recommend RMEF.org or the Elk Network. I think there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That was kind of what I had in mind. And Trevon, do you have anywhere that you like to push people at to get more information, or you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also say there's the Lampers.
Sure.
Podcast is a great information, and the reason I think it's such a great and that's Health Hunt Harvest. That's a tongue twister.
It is.
Health Hunt Harvest is a great resource. Again, a few recipes and stuff like that, but it goes a little technical on some things. But there's also, they have such a heart for sharing truth across the outdoor.
Yeah.
Whether it be fishing, camping, hunting, whatever.
And it's a killer story because Hillary was a total, really anti-hunter, right? I don't think I'm speaking too far out of text there.
No.
And Ryan was just a full-on hunter, and it took some bridging of their relationship and some different things for this amazing podcast model that they have to come together and deliver the way they do, which is
right.
a cool story all in itself.
You get Ryan's version of and he is a heck of a hunter.
He's
he's
cold,
as good a hunter as
Yeah.
if I've ever met. And then you have Hillary that comes from that. So there's the sensitivity, but it doesn't lose the strength.
Right.
And for me, that's important because I don't think, and I think you guys will agree with this, we don't have to apologize for being hunters. We don't.
No, and I think that's a point that I wanted to bring up is that we need to be proud to be hunters. Jason and I, when we met with Jim Libator at Western Hunting Expo for just a little bit, he brought up an example that I remember it was like a plumber or something that went to somebody's house, and he was a hunter, and he was talking to the gal and said, she said, just making small talk, what are you doing this weekend? He said, I'm going to the woods. He was reluctant to say he was a hunter at the risk of offending her.
Right.
And she kind of kept prying. He said, well, I'm going to the mountains this weekend. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, my son and I, we kind of have an annual trip that we go and like to spend time together. And she's like, oh, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, we're hunting. And she was not offended. She thought that was great. And he kind of went back into the fact that he was hunting rather than saying I'm going hunting and how important it was in the annual trip and the father-son and everything.
Right.
And I think that should be our first thing. And I think a lot of people, there's a perception of what some of these people think hunters are like.
Right.
And when they talk I would like to think any of the four of us, I may not agree to be a hunter, but I get it. You're not some bloodthirsty savage out there.
Right.
That you're educated, you are well-spoken, you believe strongly in what you're doing. And I may not agree with it, but I understand it, and you'll bridge that gap a little bit.
That's
and we
right.
need to use that as being proud of what we do and what we stand for.
My wife works in education, and there are some different thoughts in education as far as what they think. And I've gone to some parties, and when my wife and I were newly married, she was scared to death I was going to offend somebody.
Yeah.
And it was amazing when you sit and have an intellectual conversation with somebody in a sensitive way, and then all of a sudden they open up. They're not a hunter by all means, but when they open the door and you can have that platform to say, here's why I hunt. Well, that's when I think you need to understand and be able to eloquently communicate that to that person, and that is one person you've contacted, and it could change their life, who could then, as Jason shared, change someone else's life. And I just think, just reach one, then reach the next one.
That's right.
Then reach the next one, and we can make a difference.
I agree.
I think something else that's important, you asked where. There's waterfowl hunters who may not even want to go on Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation site because they're not big game hunters. But I think there's tons of conservation organizations out there to look and find out what's important to you. And more importantly, elk is not just protecting elk.
That's true.
They are protecting an ecosystem. And so when they're protecting, whether it's a migratory path of elk or their wintering grounds or summering grounds or whatever it is, everything else that lives in that ecosystem is benefiting from that being protected. Ducks Unlimited, and I've got a lot of experience there because my dad worked for them for nearly 20 years.
Right.
that everybody said, oh, you're just contributing to Ducks Unlimited so you can have more ducks so you can kill more ducks. No, that's not it. You're protecting the wetlands, which have an entirely different issue as the sponge and preventing flooding. But, I mean, it was they said they're protecting over 220 species at the original purpose of helping waterfowl.
Right.
So if somebody's a bird watcher, they should also help support Ducks Unlimited because the work they're doing is benefiting a lot of additional wildlife.
Yeah, that's a good key point. I mean, there's lots of people that just want to go out and take pictures. They should be involved, right? I mean, whether you're a hunter or whether you shoot with a lens or you shoot with a bow or a rifle, you go be a part of some of this stuff because it's helping you. And nonetheless, I mean, as we're helping animals, we're helping ourselves, right, Jason? We're helping generations to still have a place to go. Oh, yeah. I mean, as we're protecting animals, we're protecting space. And having space for people to go to disconnect from the urban areas, to follow their DNA a little bit into the woods, to realize that they need the wilderness in their life. I mean, that's a lot about what my podcast is about.
That's right.
People need to disconnect and go out and feel it, hear it, see it, smell it. It'll change the way you see everyday life back in the urban city, right? And so that's the importance of all these organizations, right, Jason, is to give the space.
Absolutely. I mean, that's without, big chunks of open habitat and connectivity of that habitat, we'll ultimately not have anything,
right.
So absolutely. Protecting the lands and the habitat is, the quintessential most important thing there is.
And can I make a confession
Jump
on your
in.
podcast?
Go.
Oh, okay. I was talking to someone the other day, and I want to encourage people that I did not get into hunting, and maybe some of the viewers say, "Hey, I can relate with this," but I did not start hunting for conservation. I did not start hunting to put meat in my freezer, and I didn't start hunting to save public lands. I started hunting because of the thrill of the chase and the excitement of hunting. But if we don't, okay, and I think we've got this. I think that's unfortunately there's some misnomers out there in the industry right now that if you're not flying one flag, then you're not really, being a good hunter. But the fact of the matter is, we all love this. Mm-hmm. We love the adventure.
Right.
But if we're not doing the conservation, if we're not preserving public lands. If and I hope you like organic meat or I love wild game. My family, 90% of the protein we eat is wild game.
Right.
So those are all super perks, but we do have to step up and fight for that. I would be a lazy hunter if I didn't.
That's
I would be irresponsible. But that wasn't when I started out at 11 years old rabbit hunting, I wasn't thinking the things that I'm thinking now. I've matured to a level. And so I think it's okay that if the first thing we do when we think of hunting isn't all of these, items on the checklist that we're part of. But I do think that it's important that we take a step back and think about the fact that if we don't become part of the solution, we are part of the problem.
Yeah, and you hear certain hunters and they say, well, it's not my problem. Well, it is your problem. I mean, everybody needs to pay attention to this. And like I said before, whether you're a hunter or not, you need to be paying attention to this problem because we don't want the world covered in concrete. We don't want the world paved, right? I mean, we might as well go to Mars and just live on a hard planet. I mean, how fun does that seem, Jason?
Yeah, not real fun.
And you mentioned in some of the short clips I've seen that, what's been important to you through your journey of hunting has evolved as well, right? Tell us a little bit about how that evolvement has reshaped you as you've grown older in the hunting community.
Well, I think exactly like Trevon just said, I think when you're a young boy starting out, it is the thrill of having your first BB gun. It is the thrill of just getting an animal. That's really what the ultimate goal is when you're a hunter, because you don't understand the big picture. You just know what Dad's shown you and what you've picked up along the way. But yeah, none of us started out saying, I'm going to do this because I want to be a member of a foundation.
Right.
And I don't think we should ever. Our youth shouldn't have to worry about that. I mean, I think these are just the proper steps. It's now our turn.
Right.
But if we we bring more people into hunting, they will fall in love with it like we did.
Right.
But my journey has just changed in the fact that hunting used to be this thing that in Montana, you'd get out of school opening day to go hunting, and then when you killed your elk or your deer, you'd drive down Main Street with the tailgate down, and people would celebrate and honk and give you thumbs up, and it was a big deal. The teacher wanted you to bring it to school to see it. And,
show and tell was okay with a dead head.
Yeah. And that's just changed. And like Willie said, for some reason we've been browbeat into thinking that that's not right. And I think, for me, my journey in hunting is I just, I don't assume anybody's going to tell my story for me. So my journey has evolved in just wanting to become a hunter and be successful into way broader picture because – you can't ever assume somebody's going to do what you want done. And so that's really,
it brings up the stages of a hunter. Mm-hmm. And that article that was so popular for long, that first hunter just wants a shot, just wants to kill something. That second hunter, then, as he gets to that next stage, he wants to limit out.
Right.
He doesn't care what he kills. He just wants to limit out.
I just want to fill all my tags. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. You get to that third stage, and now you're talking about, okay, I want something mature,
Right.
Then you get to that fourth stage, and you're willing to eat tag soup to kill that big booner, that, you know what I mean? And the fifth stage is now you want to share it. Now it's conservation. And I think we float between, because, I'm still on that limiting out thing, but because I never kill anything big. But I think the more you do it and as you understand what the whole picture is, yes, then you become into that last stage, which is you want to share it or you want to preserve it, you want to conserve it. And like Jason said, I don't want these guys to worry about that. At some point I do,
right.
But I want them to enjoy the stage they're at. And as they mature as a hunter, they're going to step into that role. But we got to start. We got to, keep filling that pipeline. Keep those young hunters coming in.
But how do we bridge that gap right now? I mean, we have a gap in here. How do we bridge that gap? Do you guys have any ideas how to fill that void that we've lost? Or is it kind of a spot we got to deal with being an empty space, and it's just going to be that way?
I think we have two good pools to pull from right now. One is young, so kids.
Right.
But two is people that experienced hunting at an early age and have walked away because of jobs or went to college, and they haven't hunted in years. They don't have an aversion to it. They just don't have the knowledge of how to do it. So we have this gap, and they're the ones with money. They're the ones with influence. So there are a lot of people – I meet them at church that are like, man, I would love to hunt. I don't know the first thing about it. Well, take them hunting.
Right.
I mean, this is stuff that I think of and you guys think of, and we okay, what do I need? Well, let's go. Boom, we're gone for the weekend, and we're hunting. But for someone like that, it's such a daunting, almost intimidating idea to go out for a weekend with a gun or a bow or whatever. I mean, just a gun. And try and shoot an animal. Where do I begin? So I think there's some education that can help.
Yeah, I think that's kind of for me. Like I'm getting ready to embark on some YouTube stuff, and I've really dummied it down to how do I help these people take the anxiety out of just walking into their local store and saying, "Hi, I would want to shoot a bow." Right? Because a lot of people are just like, I don't even know what to do.
Super intimidated.
I don't know where to ask. I mean, because some places you walk into and they look at you like, oh, well, what do you want to shoot a bow for? And it's like, and that's the other thing, too, is I just think everybody in the whole society needs to realize that we have to be open-minded, open-armed, and we got to embrace any question. Right? There is no stupid question.
There is no stupid question.
And, and just making some videos to show people, like, okay, so walk into your store and be like, hi. Just make it as dumb of a video as I can make, right? Like, it's just like, hey, I'm Joe Blow, and I want to shoot a bow, and I don't know if I want to shoot at a rabbit or if I want to shoot an elephant, right? Just make it fun.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people have to have that, see that and be like, oh, okay. But like you say, just taking somebody, like you said, share your jerky. Someone says something, say, I'll take you. And even one of the things I do is I keep all my old hunting clothes and everything that I've upgraded. I keep it all, and I'm like, I got what you need.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Come, I'll help you.
Don't worry about it. I got everything you need.
Yeah.
I can
and
take
I
you
can
with
do
me.
that with a lot of kids.
Right.
I can I can do that.
Well,
okay?
You're tiny.
Yeah.
All your clothes fit kids.
Well, I think Lord, I apologize. But, I do think, though, that we aren't doing good like we used to do. When I was younger, there was mentors, guys that were willing to step up into that role for me. And I think we need to, whether our local archery, I shoot in a Fort Collins Archery Association, and we shoot through the summer every Wednesday. And there are so many guys that are older that literally they just come because they're hoping to go shoot with a young shooter. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so awesome. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we need to do it. That time, that one Wednesday night that you spent with that person, helping them understand, okay, you know, he's got an old bow. Okay, let's try this. Or, you know, making him feel comfortable with that, like you said, so that he could walk into a bow shop and say, I want to learn more.
Right.
I think mentorship is – I think we need to make it a fad again. I don't know if it ever left, but I feel like it has. We don't have that connection.
I don't think it left. I just think people got too busy. People got it turned inward and got too busy. You know, I mean, we occupy our time with so much stuff. I mean, all the way down to our phones and everything we do. And I think that's the other key is for people to disconnect a little bit and realize you do have the time. Just prioritize yourself just a little different. It does not take much change to be a mentor to anybody for anything, whatever you're passionate in. Doesn't matter if it's hunting or baseball or basketball or throwing a frisbee. I don't care. Just take a little bit of time, show someone how to do it. Right?
Good point.
Well, so, I think like just recognizing the opportunity and whatever it may be. I mean, I have one story I'll share about a couple years ago. I got asked to help the Girl Scout summer camp. And one of the things that they wanted to do was shoot bows. The Girl Scouts had voted this in.
Wow. Because
that's when Brave, the movie came out. And so a lot of young girls wanted to shoot a bow.
Right.
And so we talked to the Montana Bow Hunters Association. They donated. They had a ton of bows and arrows and paper targets and things like that. So we collected all this stuff, went out, set it up at the camp for these girls, and then kind of had 3 stages of showing them how to shoot a bow and just teaching them about everything, you know. Started them out just pulling a rubber band back and forth for like the draw cycle. And my point being, at the end of that, they had activities lined up all day, every day for the 6 days that the camp was. It was nonstop for them. And at the end of it, they asked the girls what their number one favorite thing was. And the girls, the tribe leaders, the troop, whatever, they said unanimous, hands down, archery rolled the place. Like, the girls loved it, and now they all want to go get bows, and they want to learn to shoot them. So I think, you know, this is the Girl Scout camp we're talking about. We're not talking about affecting a group of construction workers sitting around. We're talking about the Girl Scouts. So I think just recognizing that we always have opportunities to affect people in a positive way and make them excited and learn. And recognizing that and being smart, tactful, and carrying a classy, respectful conversation is important. And that, I always just think about that story because, you know, it's just as genuine as it gets.
Sure. And you might not even realize what the effect that was. You might never, but you might 10 years from now have somebody come up to you and go, you know what you did?
Right.
You opened up a whole new world.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Ray Howell. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Ray Howell is a guy who's started Kicking Bear Foundation, which is an inner city it's a nonprofit for inner city kids and they teach them archery, and I think they fish, anyway, Ray, literally, his life was changed when somebody took him out and he shot a bow, and he was not headed in the right direction.
Right.
Changed his life, and so that's his mission. Mm-hmm. So it's the truth.
Yeah. Yep. It can work. It worked for me. My listeners know my story. I mean, I was a complete train wreck. And, you know, when I finally got a few things sorted out in my life and then picked up a bow, it was like, this is the best therapy I ever had, man. It was no problem for me to go back in and tell my therapist and my psychiatrist, here, you can have these pills and you can have all this. I'm out. Like, I found something that focuses my mind, keeps me level, keeps me engaged, and helps me focus. And I can't get enough of it, you know. And so I always tell people that, you know, I think it's a great way out of problems and situations because you have to be in the moment. And that's what so many people don't do anymore. They don't stay in the moment of what's happening right now, right here, in their own family, their own life, their own kids, their own everything, you know. Yeah. So I think it's a great tool. There's no doubt about it. Jason, one more serious question, and then we can have some fun. Uh-oh. From your heart, what do you hope to accomplish from hashtag? And let me rewind. I want my kids to hear this, but they won't hear it because they're sitting over there. But I still use the pound sign. Okay, I'm old enough still to. So
I thought it was tic-tac-toe.
So from your heart, what do you hope to accomplish from # Projectelk?
$! Well, it's to educate you that it's now a hashtag. So, no, actually, this right here, like, this is what I hope to accomplish from Project Elk. I wanted to, not only educate ourselves to have better conversations, but I really wanted to educate the people who don't understand how hunting is conservation and make a film that would open up the doors to be seen in places outside our community. And I think we're all here today and is proof of it. And that is everybody that's worked so hard, from my buddies who helped film to the production crew to all the support and the people we interviewed, to the Elk Foundation, to OSG and
Colorado
Stan
Avalanche,
Kroenke,
man.
the Colorado Avalanche, all of you guys. I mean, that takes that many people to come together to make this happen. And so, like, this, I could not ask or have a better answer than what we are living in this moment right now.
Right.
Like you said.
This is it. Right. So, Willie, hunting, conservation, hockey, family, podcasting. What else could happen today other than the film itself?
The Avs win.
Avs win.
Boom.
The Avs win.
I didn't even think that one
That's
through,
right.
Trevon. I kind of set myself up for that one.
No, I think this thing's great. And to kind of take Jason's deal a little further, I mean, this is the first one of these. And I think the first of anything, usually it takes, it's kind of like pushing something uphill. And we got to thank the network and Stan Kroenke and everybody to get this platform to be able to do this. I don't really know how many people are here for this event. I know maybe it's 50, maybe it's 100, but the fact that I'm in Denver and Trev's here, I think we were able to get a lot more people because we were able to promote it and the fact that we're here. But wouldn't it be great if next year, instead of having a little private showing of Project Elk in a room that maybe there's 100 or 150 people,
right
that
here
it's shown
on the
right
jump
there,
baby.
right there. And you talk about a way to reach people who might be in that middle third, to show that right afterwards, say, stick around. It's wide open, to watch something like this and help educate that many people on what conservation is would be huge. But we got to start somewhere. And
right.
to Jason's point, it's not been as much a hot topic as it is now, and I think we're just on the ground floor getting rolling on this thing.
Yeah.
And to jump on, Jason's film is such a resource. It doesn't stop here tonight, because you can access it on Amazon and iTunes.
Yep,
and,
Google Play.
And so it's something that I can take back, and I have a neighbor, and I'm just not reaching that, and I can suggest, hey, why don't you watch this? And I don't have to be there, and yet the story can continue. So that's huge.
And I appreciate you saying that, because that leads me on to say that I have set it up so 50% of every download of the film goes back to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation in perpetuity as well.
And that's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, this is just an honor. It's really a pinch myself moment to be here with you guys and to be at a place like this, and to think it started just a dream of, a kid chasing a hunting show kind of thing, and the opportunities we're getting now, it is awesome. And the support that Stan's showing us and opening up the doors and giving us this opportunity, whether there's 6 or 600 here for this event, it's a major victory, and it's a huge win for hunters across North America.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I can't agree with you more. Now, let's get down to something I got to ask you here, Jason. In your What If Hunting Was Banned video, you come out from behind this tree with a stare that I got to know if that was like your camera game face, or is that what every animal gets intimidated by when you come from behind that tree? Do you know the clip I'm talking about? I'm going to put it in. I'm going to put it in my YouTube thing here for people to see. But I'm telling you, it is, dude. I would not.
That's a 1,000-mile stare.
I would not want to be on the other end of that bad boy.
I'm pretty sure my Chick-fil-A sandwich saw that stare earlier today.
For those of you listening, this guy has a small problem. It's an addiction, actually, and it's called Chick-fil-A.
Well, we talked about it, so you can't just throw him under the bus, because I told him, I said, when me and my family roll into a state where there's an In-N-Out, it is a hard right or left-hand turn, baby.
I mean, we should be getting
Twice.
that here, right?
Yeah,
Twice. Twice. I'll go through the drive-through twice.
Just so you don't look like that guy that has to have it twice. I'm not the same guy. Wasn't me.
I put on a different hat.
So yeah. That's what the stare was. I was just thinking of a Chick-fil-A when we filmed that.
When you filmed that, you're thinking Chick-fil-A.
No.
Hashtag
No.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
I just when
Pound
I saw
sign.
that, I just looked at that and I was like, "Holy shit, man! Like that is a game face right there." So, Willie, from here, you're getting close here this summer to taking off for Bozeman and calling that your new home.
Yep. My wife and I were actually just up there the last 4 days looking at the house. It's a little farther behind than we thought it's going to be in August.
It
is.
It
But,
always
in a way that's better because it gives us more time to plan and prepare. Spend a little bit of the summer here. Our son's graduating and not uproot him and
Right.
get him up there sooner. But it's still not going to be soon enough for us. We're looking forward to it.
I'm not happy.
I think as long as it's right when you get there, then that's all that matters.
Sure.
Right?
He's going to be my neighbor. He's like
I know.
5 minutes away from my house now.
I know. I got to
Isn't that
figure out how to
crazy?
move right in between the two of you.
Yeah.
There's space.
There's space.
I saw that out of the plane. You had those Google eyes going down at the house. I'm like, there's a lot of lots left over there.
There is. Yeah, my wife's like, look, we can see our house. I'm fumbling for my phone, trying to do that, But it's a fun project. And we talked about this at the podcast at Western Hunting Expo. And having Sherry on was a ton of fun. You blindsided,
Yeah.
but that was a great deal. But
he was mad at me, Jason. He was not happy.
Oh, I was loving it. I just laughed at her face, like, "Holy crap,
Yeah.
what's happening here?" But it's going to be bittersweet. I mean, you think of doctors and dentists that you have to leave, the big stuff, right, and some
Right.
family and friends. But archery shop, I mean, no limits. You build a rapport with some of these people that go way back,
But you got the hookup.
well, exactly.
We'll take care of you up
Jason's
there.
gonna
I know,
take care
I
of you,
know.
right?
And
You're in good hands, buddy.
And you stay in touch with people you want to stay in touch with and should. And our home is open. I mean, our hope is that, man,
I'm going to
you
be
come up here
staying.
for total archery
I will.
challenge, and
You know what I
come
told
up
him?
and stay.
You know what I told him, Trevon, is that his wife's going to have to get a website made for the guest
The guest
space.
check-in, the
Check-in.
reservation. Is
Because-
that open this weekend?
Because I don't want to have to arm wrestle you for the same weekend.
No, I don't want to do that. It's funny though because even as close as we live, we see each other at events like this. I see him more out of the state of Colorado at SHOT, ATA, these shows like that, unless we're actually planning something because life is just busy.
Yeah, it is busy.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll still be in Colorado, Trevor. Okay, buddy?
Yeah.
You guys hold it down here. We'll hold it down.
You guys
up
be
there.
up north.
That's
yeah.
right.
We'll just be the
I mean,
alliance.
he's got the front range. I got the western slope, and you guys will always have a place to land when you come in. Although you
sure.
don't want to pay the prices to fly in and out of Durango, I can tell you that. It's crazy.
Cheaper to drive, for
It
sure.
is,
It really
well,
is.
but the convenience is so nice
I
sometimes.
know.
So, but that's for sure.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, we're at that. Let's call it. I mean, we've got people waiting to meet and greet with you guys, and I mean, the time has come for the real excitement of this evening to really
Rock
start
on.
generating and having a kick-ass night, right?
That's
I'm
right,
glad you
man.
drove up for this. I mean, it's
Me too.
Yeah.
It's an honor to have you up here, and it's no
Thanks,
small
Willie.
task to drive 5 or 6 hours to put this together, which shows the importance of this and you wanting to
Yeah.
promote this and tell the story. I think means a lot. So
Well,
thanks for your efforts.
Yeah, even though I'm still trying to fill tags, I am at that point where I understand the importance of this. And when I look at all of my children, and I have a lot of them, it really amplifies how much this means to me and how much it means to be a part of it. And I can't thank you guys enough for letting me be a part of it because, like you mentioned earlier, it takes all of us to make this happen, Jason.
Right.
It takes every little piece. And,
It does.
and yeah, by all means, man, I'm all in. I love it. I love sharing messages to my listeners. I love the stories, the adventures, the importance, the ups, the downs, the in and outs. I mean, storytelling's kind of a lost gig, and that's what I love about your films, and that's what I love about every TV show you guys are a part of. They're all genuinely done. They're all transparent. They're all excellent. And even for the listeners, it's like you can go to. We'll go through the list, but you guys can go check out these guys. They're all on the Sportsman's, right?
Sportsman's channel, yeah.
Sportsman's channel, right? I wasn't sure if any of them were on the outdoor or not, but I didn't think so. So they're all on the Sportsman's channel, and these guys have a great thing. So let's recap just a little bit, right? Join a club, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, local, statewide, national.
Bow Hunters
Yeah,
Association.
Colorado,
Your local
CBA,
state, yeah.
Anything. Get involved, and then educate yourself. Find some channels of education. Read about it. Don't just listen. Reading material ingrains it a little bit better in your brain, I think, for you to recap on and have that good conversation with people. And so I think that's important. And then be proud. Be proud that you're a hunter. Be proud that you care. Show it on your sleeve. Don't hide it. Be who you are. Because there's that people, I think more and more want people to be who they are. They're tired of the gray area. People are getting sick of it, right? And so be yourself. Like that lady said, she didn't mind. Just be yourself.
Be approachable.
Right? Be approachable. Yeah. Be understanding. Be compassionate. And be educated. And be proud. And then take someone hunting. Old, young, new, old hunter. It doesn't matter.
Male, female.
Male, female.
Absolutely.
Get them out. Get them out in the woods. Take them. It doesn't matter. It can be squirrel hunting. It could be rabbit hunting. It can be taking them to go catch their first trout. It doesn't matter. Get them outside and take them to do something, right? And then, of course, you can catch up with Projectelk. Hashtag Projectelk. I was going to pound it again. But you can catch it on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon. And remember that all of this, even tonight, we're all giving portions of what we're doing back to Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And that is extreme importance. And then, of course, go support these guys. They do so much out of their own personal life for what they're doing, as well as what they're doing on the Sportsman's channel. So you can catch them, Jason, into the high country, and Willie at Pure Hunting, and Trevon at Outback Outdoors. Gentlemen, what else do we need to say?
Go Avs.
Go Avs. There you go. There you go.
Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time here on Wilderness Attitude.